Jamana Tiravanachaji Tiravanachaji Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihaji Madhava Kunjabihaji Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihadi Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariyagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimadis Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. The theme for this Japa retreat is discover your relationship with the holy name. So you'll see this slide many times. Discover your relationship with the holy name, or rediscover, discover. It's there, but lost. And a little explanation. During this morning's class, there's going to be an application exercise. I'm going to ask you to do something to help integrate what we're doing. That application exercise has to do with Sankalpa. Many of you know what that term means, and no harm to hear it again if you already know. Sankalpa means intention. For example, supposing somebody's a follower of karmakanda, not bhakti, and they'll go to a priest and say, this is my sankalpa. My daughter is going to be married and I'd like to have a nice yajna for the creating auspiciousness for my daughter's marriage. So that's the sankalpa. Supposing somebody wants success in their business, supposing somebody wants whatever somebody wants. So qualified brahmanas, they go to the treasure house of mantras. They know which mantras are appropriate, and according to the sankalpa, they select mantras that match the intention of the person who's approaching them. So with karma kanda, sankalpa is very important. In bhakti, sankalpa is very important. Supposing you don't have a clear idea of what's your sankalpa is, what's your intention. It would be very difficult for you to stay concentrated. So I'm going to give a little example. I should show an image, but I'll just do it verbally. Picture an iceberg. At the top, above the surface of the water, there's the tip of the iceberg. But as we know, there's much, much more to an iceberg than the tip of the iceberg. There's a big mass of ice below the surface of the water, and down at the very bottom, there's the bottom of the iceberg, and it's just floating in the ocean. So what is sankalpa, and what's the mind? The mind is your attention. So when we're chanting, for example, we want our attention to go to the mantra. So there's the behavior part, the observable above the surface of the water part. That's, your mouth goes make some sound, some air is coming. There's the mechanical thing of the behavior of chanting. And then more than the behavior of chanting, you want the mind to be absorbed in the sound. So the mind, or attention, is just below the surface of the water in the iceberg metaphor. And then below that is your Sankalpa. If you want to stay attentive, if you want your mind to be attentive while your mouth is making a sound and the ears are hearing or not hearing the sound, if you want your attention to go there, your intention has to be clear. Say it negatively. Supposing your intention is not clear, your attention will be sporadic, because the mind's conditioning, there was a question yesterday, the mind's conditioning is all over the place, primarily influenced by guna, and also being influenced by karma. Supposing you have a bad habit in chanting, and you'd like to become free from that bad habit of chanting, and I've heard, and it's a fact, being attentive has a power. In the offenses against the holy name, there's 10 offenses, and the foremost of those 10 offenses, the one that drives all the other ones, is inattention. So you want to be attentive. Try to be attentive. If your intention is strong, not just I want to be attentive, but why do you want to be attentive? You follow? The intention is the bottom of the iceberg. Attention, at least let's say in chanting, is what the purpose of your mouth moving and making sound and the ears hearing. Attention is supported by intention. So with that little model to explain the function of Sankalpa, this is, at least for me, this is the Sankalpa for this retreat. It's my intention for tomorrow's chanting, and to communicate in different ways to all of you how important Sankalpa is. So in about 2/3 of the way through this morning's class, I'm going to ask you to, we'll pause and pull out a piece of paper or your phone, or the way that you keep notes, and write something down on what is your Sankalpa for our time together this weekend. So that's a heads up. Now, yesterday evening, we covered the topic of in the beginning, and we heard a number of things about Prabhupada saying in the beginning it was just the holy name, and from the holy name came the Hare Krishna movement, because everything comes from the holy name. There's many other things, but those other things are resting upon the holy name. So it's important. That's how bhakti begins. And we want people to hear the holy name. Not only people, we want living entities. The trees and the creepers and the bugs and all living entities that hear the holy name, there's spiritual benefit. Or without hearing the holy name, it's just the action of karma moving living entities from one situation to the next. Guna and karma moving, prakriti, driven by guna and karma. So we want to pause that one, or diminish that one, and awaken the spiritual potency through the medium of the holy name. And from the medium of the holy name, other forms of devotional service, which means distribution of knowledge and prasadam distribution and so forth, inviting people to come to the temple or in their own home to have deities and so forth. The other expressions of bhakti are resting upon this one, particularly in this age of Kali. This is a slide you saw yesterday. It's taken from Uddhava Gita. You see the verse number. You might want to look it up later. It's Krishna's explaining the Vedic path. And the Vedic path has these two features: Jata Shraddha, or awakening of faith. And how does faith awaken? Ati bhagyena, means bhagya, means fortune. The good fortune of devotee association. So become a good devotee and give association. Become a good devotee, receive mercy and give mercy. That's these two parts. Make sure your receiver's on, keep the receiver on, and get the mercy receiver on, and then as you receive, you broadcast these two things. And there's a quality that's mentioned in this verse by Krishna to Uddhava. Nirvana sarvakarmasho. Nirvana sarvakarma, with indifference to fruitive intention. Say it the other way. Material activities are driven with fruitive intention. That's called passion. You do something to get something. And so who does something if there's not a purpose to get something from that something? So it doesn't mean, quit your job, or if you're a student, don't go to school, or it doesn't mean stop stuff. It means the intention behind it. So it means adjusting your intentions to spiritual intentions. That's a spiritual sankalpa. There can be material ones. I want to have a nice, auspicious marriage for my daughter, and so I want to have a yajna. So the beginning of, so there's no harm. But then behind that one, what is there a higher one? Is there a spiritual purpose? So that as a parent, it'll assist my daughter to perfect her life spiritually and go back to Godhead. That kind of auspiciousness. And when that kind of activity is done, the foothold or the beginning, in the beginning of devotional service, then there can be concentration. Awakened faith in hearing messages of transcendence with a detachment from fruitive purposes in life in general. So that means spiritual purposes. Then I can concentrate. That's the mind. But now we're going to go a little bit below the mind, and that's the intention behind trying to get the mind oriented like this or aligned like this. You saw this slide also. This is Rupa Goswami's verse on the appropriate kinds of detachment. That is, when stuff comes, you don't engage with stuff with the intention of being the enjoyer of stuff, but it's simply a facility given by Krishna to offer something to Krishna. And we, with folded palms, say thank you to Krishna and offer what he has given to us in service to him, whatever that might be. Your house, your car, etc., etc., etc. The I and mine. If my identity, its spiritual conception is, I'm Krishna's part and parcel meant for his service, if that's actually my conception of who I am, whatever I have, what's mine, it's for Krishna, because my life is for serving Krishna. It's pretty simple. Now comes the topic for this morning, chanting from the heart. Some of you may have heard that phrase, Prabhu, chant from the heart. And then the question goes, huh? How do you do that? It has a lot to do with Sankalpa. And so let's go through it. If the option of chanting from the heart is not only chanting from the heart, but acting from the mind. The mind's the driver, and the senses are being directed by the mind. So one can say, there's a bit of a tightrope program that we walk, and that is sometimes from the heart, sometimes from the mind. Other times, we act from the heart. So if you want to act more from the heart, doesn't mean you turn the mind off. It means you align the mind with the heart. Let's go back to that iceberg metaphor and the word alignment. Yes, attention is very important. Yes, the behavior is very important. And when attention and behavior are aligned with your sankalpa, like who you really are, then you're in good shape. If they're not in alignment, it's going to be a little messy. Hit or miss, and often miss, but sometimes hit, and that's nice. But sankalpa is very important. That's from the heart. And our relationship with Krishna, we choose to act from the heart. And we don't have to, but beneath even persons that are kind of new and inexperienced, etc., at the very deepest part in them, there's not just, I don't like the suffering, but if bhakti means I want to be connected with Krishna again. That's the theme. Discover your relationship with the holy name. Now, acting from the heart isn't a one-time event. I remember once upon a time. It's a lifestyle. It's a transformation to go from where we've been, we'll say, from the head, or the senses, including the mind, to acting from the heart. So that's a journey. That journey is the bhakti process itself. It's continual or continuous devotional service to Krishna. Look at this. Rupa Goswami explains it. Anyabhilasha shunyam. You can say with me. Anyabhilasha shunyam jnana karma dhanavratam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktir uttama. Here's one translation. The highest bhakti, that's uttama bhakti, is defined as continuous service or emotions directed towards Krishna, his expansion forms, or others related to him. This is the anukulyena part. With a pleasing attitude towards Krishna. Anukulyena Krishna. It should be devoid of desires other than the desire to please the Lord, and unobstructed by impersonal gyan, the materialistic rituals of karma, and other unfavorable acts. That's at the beginning. Anya abhilash. Abhilash means desire. Anya abhilash means other desires. And shunya, we all know. Zippo. Like shunyavadi. Nirvishesha, sunyavadi. Shunya means void or absent. Where other desires are absent. Which ones? Jnana and karma. Anavritam, finished. That's a pretty clean slate. So in that, remember the phrase, nirvritta karmasu? Same. Anya abhilash shunyam jnana karma dhanavritam. So with that, supposing you're not there yet, supposing you have anya abhilash, what do? Well, we discussed it. That's what that verse from Krishna to Uddhava says. You recognize it's with me. It's with me because of my past fruitive activities. And I can't just dismiss it because I don't like it. I accept that it's there, and I'll endure what's coming to me because of those anya abhilashas of the past. But I'm choosing to not act on them going forward in time. In least directionally, by practice like that. Okay, so it should be devoid of desires other than the desire to please the Lord. That's the positive. Anukolyena Krishna Anu Shilana. Shilana means conduct. Anu means follow. Anu Shilana means following the souls that are actually there. And if you're not there, find souls that are. At least, minimally, at least in scripture, persons who are your heroes. And you look up to your heroes. And you hear from them, remember them, pray to them, serve them, try to please them. And that way you associate with them. Those who are in this abhilashunya position. And then you cultivate. Anukulyena. Anukul means to accept. Pratikul means to reject. So you accept those things that are pleasing to Krishna by the association of those who know and live their lives according to the principle of only doing those things that are pleasing to Krishna. You associate with such persons, those qualities become your quality. Sadhu Sangha. Or we develop qualities like those with whom we associate. It's right in Bhagavad Gita. Sangat sanjayate kama. Kama, desire, arises from the association you keep. So keep good association. And especially our great acharyas, and keep close to them. That's this anukulyena, pleasing attitude towards Krishna. To serve Krishna from the heart, we need to align our consciousness with the heart of bhakti. That's a nice phrase. It's nice graphics too. Now, what does that mean? What's the heart of bhakti? A teenager did these graphics for me. They're really good. So on the left, you see a bunch of hearts. And on the right, you see 3 hearts, and down at the center of that third heart, that's super soul. Can you see? So in these 3 hearts that are on the right-hand side, there is the graphic is there's this verse explained. Anushilana, remember the word shila means behavior or conduct. Anushilana can be understood as the processes of bhakti. That's the observable, that's the tip of the iceberg. Observable, measurable things. So here's a Pujari, I'll say his name, but anyway, it'll disturb him, so I won't. Divyasham's doing arti. So there's a behavior. And he's following the vidhis, which is good. We follow the vidhis. But there's something else going on inside. And that's, the mind is going to the deity. And there's something should be behind that one, which is Krishna should be pleased. So in the 9 processes of bhakti, anushilana is you do the things that are prescribed. And the object is Krishna. Because whenever we do something, there's the subject and the object. It's like grammar. Then there's the verb. And the verb is bhakti. So the Krishna is the object, and we're the subject cultivating bhakti. Now at the heart is the intention to please Krishna. That's the anukulyena. Krishna anushilana. Krishna is the object. At the heart is the intention that Krishna should be pleased. And that's the life of devotion, and that's chanting from the heart. That's at the heart of bhakti. Here's another nice graphic. There's a desire tree. The desire tree is the holy name. Look at all those hearts on the desire tree. And look carefully, some of those hearts have supersoul at the center of those hearts. So now here's the practical application exercise. What is your Sankalpa for this Japa retreat? Explicitly articulate your personal intention to come and attend this retreat. So the first 2 Japa retreats I attended, the first one was overseen by Satchidananda Swami, who had done many of these in Europe, and he came to America and did one for us in America. And the very beginning was, Satchidananda Swami style. He had deities on, it was at a Buddhist retreat center, up on an altar. And we were given some time and a piece of paper to write down our Sankalpa. And then put it on a piece of paper and submit it during kirtan at the feet of the deity and offer the prayer. That's on our Sankalpa. It's a ritual that's meaningful because if you have bhakti, you want to fulfill your intention. So I'm going to ask you, we'll take a few minutes, pull out your handheld device, whatever you've got there with you. Everyone's got one at least. And write something down. If you have a really good memory, you don't have your handheld device, you can think it through. Literally write something, and I'll stop speaking. Many of the devotees have completed, so I'm going to move on. I'll recommend, if you have additional rounds to chant today, that you pull out your written Sankalpa, meditate on it, offer a prayer to Krishna that he can help you fulfill this Sankalpa, because it's not a doership effort, it's a mercy effort. There's prayasa, there's something that we do, and there's kripa, there's something that Krishna does. There's a nice set of prayers just connected with this. There's a nice set of prayers, 8 prayers, Ashtakam, by Rupa Goswami, prayers to Govardhan. And the refrain for each of the 8 prayers is like this. It's a prayer to Govardhan, please fulfill my desires. Now, Rupa Goswami doesn't have material desires. He has spiritual desires. And he's doing prayasa, he's doing his bhakti in very, very, very wonderful ways. And he understands he's dependent upon mercy. And so it's the refrain. In glorification, 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 Govardhan, please fulfill my desires. It's really beautiful, his Ashtakam. So this is similar. Krishna and his name are non-different. We're going to hear that several times. We've heard it so many times. And Krishna's ready. He's forever inviting the conditioned souls to come to him and enjoy with him in a loving, serving mood. So, the holy name also, in the relationship, is inviting us. So, what is our relationship with the holy name? There's this, some of you have had association with Vaisheshika Prabhu. And this is his phrase, where intention goes, energy flows. Have you heard that one before? Where attention goes, intention. So from intention comes attention. From intention goes attention, where attention goes, energy flows. So you have, it's very important to have a clear sense of Sankalpa. Once we reawaken our inherent intention to please Krishna, that's at the heart of bhakti, we can carry out our actions from the platform of the heart. This is a little exposition on chanting from the heart. The primary action necessary to become closer to Krishna, that's the tip of the iceberg part, is the chanting. We can chant inattentively, we can chant attentively, but the primary action, even this inattentive chanting, is powerful. Abbas, Nam Abbas is powerful. What to speak of Shuddha Nam. Here's a graphic showing on the left side mode of ignorance and mode of passion with a big fire in between, this modern life. Destruction and enjoyment. Ignorance and passion in our modern life. So in this modern life, the chanting of the holy name is the primary recommended means for elevating those people on the left. And you all know the verse. This is found in Adi Lila 3 times. Harir Nama, Harir Nama, Harir Nama. Eva Kevalam. Kalo Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva. Gatir Anyata. For this age, for spiritual progress in this age of Kali, there is no alternative. There is no alternative. There is no alternative to the holy name. the holy name of the Lord. This is Prabhupada's translation. So how do we align ourselves with that behavior, that activity? Now there's uplifting, enlightening, and natural chanting of the holy names. And there's the other kind where it feels mechanical or dry or dutiful. And we all know what that space is. From time to time we have the other one. But we want the first one and less of the second one. In our loving relationship with Krishna, we strive to carry out our actions from a place of love, not merely on a basis of duty. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says like this. It's nice. There are stages of doing things. And the stage of goodness is where you do things out of duty. Out of duty means I brush my teeth in the morning because it's good for me. I take a bath in the morning because it's good for me. I do not. So I don't steal because it's not good for me. It's just not good. So I don't steal, I don't lie. So the do's and do nots, driven by the mode of goodness, is duty. And he explains, service on the platform of duty is not service on the platform of love. Now there may be a principle of some strain of love, but there's the do and do not has the vidhis of duty. So it's in the beginning. There's a really nice share something. In a morning walk in Durban, South Africa, one morning, on a morning walk, a devotee was asking Prabhupada, how do we know when we're chanting properly? And Prabhupada said, there's no question, you must. And then the devotee said, yes, I know I must, but how do I know when I'm chanting nicely, with quality? I think the word was with quality. And Prabhupada said it again, there's no question, you must. So Brahmananda, who was the GBC with this group in the morning walk, he said, Prabhupada, he knows he must, but he wants to know when he is doing his chanting, how does he know that he's chanting with quality? And then Prabhupada, a long description. You chant because you must. But when you're chanting with quality, it's not just a question of 16 million. No limit. That's when you're chanting with quality. Until you're chanting with quality, you must. It's duty. There's vidhis connected with the stage of bhakti that's just practiced where I don't have a taste, but I chant anyway because I know it's good for me. I take my bath because I know it's good for me. I do something because it's good for me. That's mode of goodness. And I don't do other things because it's detrimental. The do's and the don'ts. The vidhis of bhakti are there for those that are not in the quality stage yet, or not acting from the platform of love. But the very heart of bhakti, remember the previous slides, it's the intention that Krishna should be pleased. So what I'm trying to express this morning is that theme, discover your relationship with the holy name. That's an intention or a sankalpa. And if that sankalpa, as to the degree that that sankalpa is active or vibrant, then your attention is going to be stronger. And then, because there's the discussion on taste, acquiring a taste. But it starts with this one, the intention of pleasing Krishna. Here's another graphic with a bunch of hearts. It's possible to chant from the heart when we move from the head to the heart. That is, when our mind, senses, and emotions are directed toward a single purpose. Now, notice the graphic. On the far left, there's the heart and there's the brain. And there's a person dangling from both. We're kind of caught between the two, sometimes and sometimes. And over on the right, there's the senses. Remember the description from those two children? I'd like to preach Krishna. I'd like to go in that direction, but the mind and the senses are demanding. So it's hard. We're conditioned by those forces, and it's just prakriti, according to the modes of nature. Some person's sense object is this one, some is that one. And what's the remedy? It's chanting, even dutifully, to come to the stage where we're chanting from the heart. So on the right side, there's the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That purpose that's moving from the head to the heart is reuniting ourselves in the forgotten relationship we have with Krishna through the medium of the holy name. So the message is nice, the graphics are nice, and then doing it is yet another thing. We're not able to call out the holy name with complete attention and surrender because we have false shelters. In order to accept our true original shelter, we need to let go of the false impermanent ones. So that's I've learned this from many years. Spiritual teachings, Prabhupada was just saying in a lecture in Hyderabad the other morning, that I was listening to. Any spiritual practice will teach the same thing. Suffering arises from material contact. You have a desire to be the enjoyer of some objects out there. Enjoyment is out there somewhere. You just have to be smart and get stuff and enjoy the senses, and happiness is out there. That's the program. And we're driven. It's passion. Happiness isn't out there. So any spiritual discipline teaches to let go of that misunderstanding. Buddhism, for example, the root cause of suffering, desire. So get out your dagger and stab desire till it's dead. And then you get happy. Then you don't suffer. But any spiritual discipline, but regardless of how it's phrased, it's diminish that material enjoyment expectation and go to, you have to do that first before you can take to the spiritual association. Spiritual association will help you get there, but we have to let go of false impermanent shelters. Once we let go of our false shelters, and our minds, senses, and emotions are directed by a single purpose, that's Sankalpa, the intention to please Krishna, we can call out to the holy name from the core of our heart. So let's just say somebody has a calamity in their life. Fantastic. Calamity isn't fantastic, but calling out with fervent appeal, that's fantastic. There's a nice scriptural example, I'm sure many of you are aware. Haridas Thakur was put in jail because there was a Muslim leader that went to the king and told the king, this fellow is going to ruin your rule because he's Muslim born and he's chanting Hare Krishna. So if people stop becoming Muslims and chant Hare Krishna, then your power is gone. So you got to punish him. So he put him in jail to have a hearing before the king. So while he's in jail, the prisoners were really happy. A sadhu has come to give us his association in jail. How fortunate. So what did Haridas Thakur said? He said, may you stay in this position. Wait a minute, we wanted a benediction. He said, you didn't understand. It's not, he said, in 2 or 3 days, I'm telling you, you'll all be released from jail. But while you're in jail, your dependence upon the personality of Godhead has really spiked. Stay in that position, because when you no longer have that restriction of your senses and your mind and so forth, then you'll go back to the way it was before. So stay in that position. Even when you have more liberties, you have more freedoms, you have more resources. Don't become the enjoyer of all that. Stay in the position of being dependent so that you can call out to Krishna. So whether it's this or that, that's the detachment from the temporary, whether it's this or that. Stay with the position of full shelter and dependence upon Krishna. When we offer our soul, our very self, at the lotus feet of the holy name, in a mood of complete surrender, inattentive and mechanical chanting will cease. That's the solution. So it's a cultivation. It's not mechanical. It's not just a behavior. It's something that's more subtle. It's an intention of wanting to please Krishna, and in a humble mood taking shelter of Krishna. That's spiritual life. That's chanting from the heart. Acting from the heart means acting from a place of who we are. Who are we? We are eternal servants of the all-knowing, all-loving, and all-attractive Supreme Personality of Godhead. This painting on the left, that's Gopakumar returning to the spiritual world and being very happily accepted by Krishna, because Krishna was waiting. Krishna was waiting. Krishna was anxiously awaiting, when will he come? Finally he came. Please don't leave. Please don't ever again leave. Here's our final slide. With a prayerful attitude, try to call upon Krishna from the core of your heart. For example, my dear Krishna, I am your eternal servant. Allow me to serve you by chanting your loving holy name. Now, for example, when a child goes like this, looks at their mother or father and goes like this, what does it mean? Please pick me up. And I've seen it so many times. As soon as the parents pick up the child, for about 30 seconds, they're calm. Then they start squirming. They want to get back down again and run around. But they wanted that affirmation or confirmation of the affection of mother or father. And sometimes they reach from their mother's arms towards their father, and they want to be picked up by their father, and they go to their father, and then they squirm and they want to run around again. So our independence isn't given up by taking shelter of Krishna. But the loving reciprocation is everything. Supposing, like this young boy said to this home program, we're too much attached to our independence. I don't want to let go of my independence, if that's what it means. We don't let go of our independence. We recognize our dependence. Or, please accept me. There's a nice description of chanting the holy name where Prabhupada said exactly that. The chanting of Hare Krishna means, please accept me. Now, of course, Krishna will accept us. But what about from our side? And how much do we mean it? So it's the difference between the head, a value that we like and an idea that sounds nice, and the heart is, it's something that's actually our intention in our bhakti life. So that's what the topic is for this morning. Chanting from the heart. So let's see if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So while doing other services like deity worship, association with devotees, hearing lectures, Srimad Bhagavatam, all of that, it feels like there is so much connection with Krishna and the heart is right there. So is chanting that determining factor that would really tell us the relationship, or other factors also play into this?
Other factors are playing, yes. And let's say it go both ways. When you do your deity worship mindfully or devotionally, it will strengthen your chanting. When you chant, it'll strengthen your deity worship. There's an interplay between them. However, most important of all the things that the processes of bhakti is the chanting of the holy name. It will enrich and empower all the other things, like you mentioned, that we do in the course of our devotional lives. Say it the opposite. Supposing one is not, I know some devotees, the weakest part of their spiritual practice is chanting. They like this and that and the other thing, and they struggle. And that's an inhibitor for all the other things that they do, and they know it, and still they struggle. They don't mind sharing it openly, but then how to get on the other side of that struggle. So it enriches, it's the foundation. It's the most important thing. And yet, yes, the other things impact.
Because it's not just doing the rounds, but like you said, chanting from the heart.
Yes.
That's missing part.
And it's easy, it's nice sounding, and it's easy to speak about it, and it's another thing to do it. It's transition from where we are to where we want to be. But that's bhakti. It's cultivation, not just turn the channel to a nice channel. It's a cultivation. It's a journey, as was mentioned.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna. Yesterday you were talking about the Avaranatmika and Prakshepatmika Maya, like how Maya plays. So when we chant, how do we understand, this Maya is affecting and like this, like from which, like is it a Avaranatmika or like a Prakshepatmika? Can you explain a little bit? Hare Krishna.
Is your question, what do these two terms mean and how do they play out in our lives?
Yes, yes.
The two terms, one is throwing potency and the other is covering potency. So the throwing potency is something that is already we're subjected to, and now it's the covering potency. Now supposing you or I or any one of us want to overcome the covering potency. Behind that one is the throwing potency. So it's a double whammy. And what's behind both is the primordial, or since time immemorial, desire to be an enjoyer. And then the two come. So by one thing, you can overcome the both things. That Krishna should be pleased. And that's my purpose that's my human mission, human life's mission. That Krishna should be pleased. Okay? Online question, look at that.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So chanting from the heart and quantity of chanting, is there any relationship between the two?
Of course. And back to the question that Prabhupada was asked in Nairobi. How do we know when we're chanting with quality? Is there a connection? Absolutely. Quality means chanting from the heart. Chanting the heart is chanting with quality.
But quantity, like
Oh,
16
you said
rounds
quantity?
or 64 rounds.
Well, that's still on the surface. It's not quality yet. It's not from the heart yet. There's some intention behind it. And then keep going, keep going, keep going. One of the presentations while I'm here is I'm going to point out a verse from Patanjali Yoga Sutras, where he gives a very simple 3-part definition of what practice is, yoga practice is. And yoga practice is something you do regularly, something you do for a prolonged period of time, and something that you do with faith that it's going to carry you to a good place. So, chanting 64 rounds can be a practice, and then practice can help one get to quality. So that the definition of Patanjali is something that's can be said to be, this is yoga practice, has those 3 qualities. But practice is not the same as love. Duty is not the same as love. It's a practice. It's Vaidhi Bhakti for us. But it helps you get there.
Thank you.
Online?
So this is from Apurva Mataji. So she's asking, what's the end goal of life? Is it to please the spiritual master or to obtain love for Krishna? Or love for Krishna is something that we get as a result of pleasing the spiritual master?
Well, if you want to separate pleasing the spiritual master from the goal of life and saying, is it pleasing the spiritual master or is it being in our relationship with Krishna? It's an artificial separation. It's like looking at an object from this side, same object from that side, or another perception from another side. So you can describe features of the object, but the question is, what's the object or what's the goal of life? Technically, one can say pleasing the spiritual master is a means, not exactly the end, but how do you separate the means and the end? Because pleasing the spiritual master indicates that Krishna is pleased. If Krishna is pleased, you're there. The bell rang. You've reached the goal. If Krishna is pleased. Say it reverse. Can Krishna be pleased if there isn't that loving regard for those who are dear to him? Krishna, I love you. I don't know about those that are dear to you. So, they're not separable. They're different features of the same thing, is what I'm saying. Something else?
One more. So, what should we do to go deeper in our devotional service, and how do we prevent from going in doership mentality while trying to go deeper in our devotional practices?
Well, the second one is if you try to go deeper in the doership mentality, you'll find that you won't go deeper in the because of the doership mentality. It's an obstacle. You palena parachiyate. You judge a thing by its result. And you, or anyone, will not be satisfied if you approach the right thing in a doership mentality, because that's not yenatma suprasidati. One doesn't come to the stage of suprasidati by that method. The fruit is not there, and therefore the approach is not the right approach. As stated in this morning's class, it's a journey to go from, I'm at the center to Krishna's at the center. When Krishna's at the center, it's not like I evaporate, I become nothing. But Krishna's at the center. And for Krishna to become at the center, it's a relationship where there's subject-object. And Krishna's everything. You don't become a zero. But for you, Krishna is everything. So you make that journey. And the how-to is the bhakti process. Starting with sadhu sangha, and in the middle is sadhu sangha, and the end is sadhu sangha. Associate with persons that are sadhu-like through beginning, middle, and end. And do with sadhus what sadhus do. Learn from them, serve them. Honor them. Okay. More?
One more. This is from Sucharita Mataji. How will one know for sure that the quality of chanting is improving?
Well, Prabhupada gave the answer to that. Where there's an attraction, where there's no end to that attraction. As Prabhupada said, why 16 rounds, 16 million rounds? There's no end. Things material, there's satiation. It's not difficult to give examples. Supposing somebody likes ice cream. Supposing you have children and they like ice cream. How much ice cream can they eat? At a certain point, it's like, I've had enough. But when there's quality, it's never enough. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. That's quality. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.